I've got this guitar on loan from a store, never heard of the brand, never played one of their guitars, but I saw this model and got a bit curious, so I contacted the store if I could try one, and here it is. So let's see what this thing can do. This guitar is labeled as a brand called Stanford, but it's made by a German company who also makes Maybach. And it's designed in Germany, but most of it is manufactured in China as far as I know. And although Chinese guitars get a bad rap, I think there are plenty of examples of guitars made in Asia that are great. Take Eastman for example, and this guitar even looks a bit like an Eastman, but it costs less, and that's probably because Stanford isn't as well established as Eastman yet. If you just look at the specs of this guitar, it actually seems pretty nice for the price. It has an ebony fretboard, aged nitro finish, and it comes with a hardshell case included in the price. The hardware, electronics and pickups are not specified clearly, but let's just have another listen what it sounds like. Although they call it a Crossroads Thinline guitar, it's obviously a copy of a Gibson ES335. This one has a finish called Vintage Blonde and the front and back are fully veneer, at least as far as I know. The one that I got has a few flaws in the finish and to me it doesn't look really modern but also not really vintage. One of the first decent guitars that I owned was also an ES style guitar. It was a Yamaha Troy Von Lewis signature with 3 P90s and a Bigsby. It was one of my main guitars for years, but eventually it didn't work for me anymore and I passed it on. Since then I've moved more into Gibson guitars, but where does this guitar sit sonically between a Gibson SG and Les Paul with humbuckers? Let's throw them in the mix with these authentic guitars and see how well it holds up. me, all three of these guitars obviously sound a bit different, but it's also obvious to me that the pickups in a Stanford don't sound as well rounded as the pickups I have in my Gibsons. The cleans lack clarity and the overdriven tones just lack some sort of focus and they sound a bit too raggedy. Next to that, it doesn't play or feel as nice as both Gibsons. And this isn't a bad guitar by any means. And even though I cannot compare it to the Gibson counterpart, I don't think this is a Gibson-killer. But of course, the Gibson version of this guitar would cost you more than 3 times of what this guitar costs you. But if you look at the Epiphone counterpart, the Stanford is double the price of the Epiphone. And of course it comes with a hardshell case, ebony fretboard and nitro finish, but you might wonder if that's enough to pay more for a guitar that is also made in China, just like the Epiphone. In my experience, the Epiphone has pickups that sound a bit too woolly and I'm not a fan of the Indian Laurel fretboards. But of course pickups can be changed and the Epiphone has a nicer and fuller C-shaped neck as opposed to the narrow feeling D-shaped neck on the Stanford. For the price, I think it's a decent guitar but not a great guitar. There are plenty of things to like about this guitar, but at the price point it doesn't sway me enough to keep it. If you want to try an ES style guitar and you don't want to break the bank, I suggest you try an Epiphone and maybe compare it to this and make up your own mind. Even though these Stanfords seem pretty well liked by other YouTubers, it just wasn't for me. Let me know your experience with ES guitars in the comments. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I'll see you next time.